Rick, good morning, man.
Good morning, Keith. How are you today?
I'm great, man. Thank you for joining me for another show. We're back together,
I love
so
it.
I
I
appreciate it.
love it. I kind of miss it when we don't do this more often.
I know, man, and I know you got a busy day with all your commitments to your clients and the whole legal process. So thank you for making time today to do another show with me.
You're welcome, man. This is highlight of my day.
All right, thank you. So what I thought we'd talk about today, which is always timely, would be what is the greatest gift that we can give to ourselves and to give to others? And I think that is cultivating peacefulness. Like being peaceful is the greatest gift that we can get to our loved ones and to ourselves. What do you think?
I would say, I don't know about that. I think you've got to have fitness up there, health. Um,
Yes.
before we get into anything else, it's like that hierarchy of needs that
Mm,
Maslow did
great point, Rick.
in
Great point.
1943. You got to have that foundation where you're not, you're in good health and you're able to make changes, you're able to pursue uh, a life of peacefulness in a life that serves others. But you have to first be mindful of your own needs and your own health. So once we have that, then I think the next thing is definitely a sense of inner peace, a sense of inner directedness, that you're the one who's calling the shots, that you're the one who's motivated, you're the one who's proceeding toward your goals, and you're the one who creates those very goals that you're proceeding toward. That's I think the key to being content and happy. You've got to have that going for you.
Well, man, you always dropping knowledge, and I
You know?
appreciate you correcting me there. But you're absolutely right. If you don't have your physical health, mental health, there's not much else you can do. You have to take care of those biological needs first and foremost, and then with that being on firm ground, then you can start to do other things. And I think at the top of that list, we both agree after that box is checked is your inner peace.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
when did you first learn how important inner peace was to not only your own uh, pleasant, joyful experience of life, but that it was also your inner peace was a gift to other people?
Yeah, I think probably when I started to get into trouble, just being unable to follow through with things and feeling like I was always a victim. And I don't know when that was, probably in my teens. And I started to feel sorry for myself, and I was making other people miserable. And not only was it disservice to myself, but what brought me out of it was sports. Brought me out of
Mm,
sports, the idea that you're working in a team, your behavior, your abilities, your inabilities to work, to follow direction, to be a team player, let down other people. So I think that was sort of the foundation for it. But then as I moved on, I realized that most of what humans do is to try to avoid pain and to move toward pleasure. And so I found my behavior being routed in that direction, always pursuing pleasure, always pursuing pleasure, always pursuing pleasure, staying away for things that were hard because they were painful. And then that made me realize that that is wrong. You can't do that and have a successful, contented life. So that led me down the path to begin studying Buddhism and looking into all sorts of different self-help things. And that, I guess, brought me here.
yeah, I think I can totally relate to you with what you said. It's true for me that sports really was a great experience with helping me to cultivate inner peace and understanding that my actions they impacted other people,
Yes.
in a meaningful way. And but I think it was necessary that it was something that I cared about. Like I cared about winning. I
Mhm.
cared about that so much so that it modified my behavior. Okay, I want to not only do I want to be the best that I can be, but I want my team to thrive and to win. And so that requires me to do my part. Before that, I would do for other people, but it was involuntary, man. My mom, man, Dora was no joke, man. As I said many times before, she was disinterested in whether or not you wanted to do it or your attitude about anything. If you had the slightest look like
Yeah.
you didn't want to do something, man, she was not having it. So that was really good for me, man, because I hated that inside. I hated it because I never showed it on my face or verbalized that I was, not happy with whatever she was making us do. But that really cultivated that service before self attitude was there from her, modeling her as well as her making us do whatever she wanted us to do, which is really contributing to others every single day as a kid. But again, that was involuntary. When it came to something voluntary, it was sports, man. Like I love team sports. I like individual sports, but I love team sports more. And it's just really cool being a part of someone else. And I think that socialization is really key. And it serves us for situations like this that we're dealing with present day with the pandemic, is that sense of social responsibility to really take care of others in the way that we behave and the way we talk, and being civil, even if we disagree on certain things, whether it's when to open the country up or what measures to take, if we can be civil. And I think that's part of inner peace. People that have inner peace are civil in their, discourse. And that's something that I had to work on. And I continue to work on it. But you're absolutely right, Rick. The key to inner peace is, it comes in levels. And when I was going through my,
True.
yeah, it comes in ways in my achievement life for decades, trying to get to the next thing, make as much money as possible, the next material trapping, the bigger house, car, all those things. When I was on that treadmill, man, I really had no inner peace. And I was constantly looking outside of myself for that pleasure, more money, more, can we get another zero at the end of this, commission? Can we, can I get the nicer car? Oh, let me upgrade my computer. Just all those things. There was really no inner peace because I was continually striving. And like you, I made those around me miserable. And I wasn't even present to how miserable I was making people around me until now. People, like, Keith, man, you're so different than you were before, or you changed. It takes people like you who knew me before to the people that know me now. People that know me now, like, there's no way Keith could have been that way. I'm like, I know a few people that can tell you some stories, like how I'm just so much different, and it's because I'm peaceful inside, man. I
Well,
just really am.
you've taken some hits, and so I think you realize the importance of how much we contribute to our own suffering by wanting
Yes,
things to be in a different way. We want things to be the way we want them. We don't want people to know that we screwed up. We don't want people to know that we don't have as much money as they think we do. We want people to respect us and so forth. So you create all of these false masks in order to preserve our self-awareness and self-worth when they're all doing just the opposite. They're creating this
exactly.
horrible, fake, inauthentic presentment to other people and to yourself. And the ego starts to believe that, and you lose track of who you are. The Buddhists say something that I think is very important, and it's on point in this case, and that is it's not what you have, it's not even who you are, it's really what you think and how you cope and how you're able to use what the Tibetan Buddhists call Tonglen, the ability to take in very difficult circumstances, internalize them, and put them out back into the world with love. Now, that
Mm,
is a very high level to be at.
no
That's
doubt.
very difficult because they go around looking for other people's problems to take
Right.
on, to refine them, and to give them
Yes.
more love, like a bodhisattva in Buddhism. That this is a person who is enlightened but stays behind, delaying their own nirvana so that they can help others get to the next level. Well, we see that in our world all the time, and those are the people that we want to be around. And I'll bet you, Keith, that there are lots of folks, if you would ask them why they want to be around you, is because they want to be like you. They want to have that kind of golden energy, that feeling that there is love in the air and you're not going to be judged. But I think the first step to all of that is the inner peace step is mindfulness, just being present, not wanting things to be any different, and not wanting to be who you are in that moment other than just a being. Not the
Right.
role of mom, not the role of teacher, not the role of boss, not the role of lawyer, none of the roles. Get rid of the roles.
Right.
In that moment, we're just being. And that's what meditation does. Meditation allows you to get into the gap between the thoughts. That's hard
Yes.
to put your head around. But the idea is that there is a place of peace that has nothing to do with any of your thoughts or any of your roles or any of the preferences that you have. It's a solid nothingness from which you can build everything.
Yeah, Rick, man, you said that beautifully, man. First of all, thank you for the kind words and the compliment, and you nailed it right on. That I've taken some hits, and I can look back on them, and every one of them was self-induced, self-inflicted, and the suffering is what has brought me to this point. I've said that on several podcasts before, and so people will argue with me, like, "But no, your stepfather was abusive." Yeah, he was abusive, but he cannot outbehave his current level of consciousness. So here was a guy who was hurting and in pain, and so he did the best he could with, somebody who was hurting and in pain.
What
I
a
mean,
compassionate view. What a
oh,
compassionate view.
oh, thank you. That view is just probably about 10 years old because before that it was a ton of suffering and judging.
But
But thank you.
don't you think that's required though? I mean, people
Absolutely.
hold on to grudges and it does nothing but hurt themselves. People forget that there's a big difference between forgiving, which is required, and condoning. You may have been
Right.
hurt in the worst possible way. You don't condone what happened to you, what the other
No.
person did, but you forgive because you want to let go of that hate inside of you that clings and makes you suffer, right?
Yeah, 100%, Rick, and just having compassion because people have had so much compassion for me, and my missteps, man. My closest friends are those who know the things that I've done and have behaved poorly. And they have just, they love me, man. They let me, like you, to be vulnerable and things like that. And you're also the friends that you don't need to know the details of what happened. I don't care what happened. I don't care what you did. I love you. That is it. And in terms of that forgiveness, man, I think Wayne Dyer said it best when he quoted a poem by Rumi, which was, For, forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet gives off under the heel that has crushed it. And I'm
Oh,
like, man, dude, how do
whoa,
like what? I
whoa,
know, right? How deep is that?
whoa.
I
Wow,
know.
that is, say
That's
that again.
okay.
That's worth repeating. Say that again, please.
Okay. Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet gives off under the heel that has crushed it. I know, man, right? I mean, so I think about that.
It's incredible.
And I'm just like, okay, this is the standard. It's not about being perfect or perfection, but this is a space that I want to occupy when it comes to my ego telling me that I've been done wrong. And so it's like you said with my stepfather, some of the other things that have happened, it hasn't been a matter of excusing their behavior. That's their journey. My space is to, or my role is to create the space for them to be however they want to be. So my stepfather wasn't conscious when he acted the way he did. So why would I hold him responsible, or why would I expect him to be different? I mean, somebody who has been drinking all day and night, and I expect him to get on the freeway and be a responsible driver. No, I don't, because they are not capable of doing that. And so when you're not conscious, you're not. So what's my responsibility? My responsibility is to do the practice every day, to stay aware, to be mindful so that I can be conscious more times than I'm not. And that just takes practice, man, a lot of practice. And even recently, my ego was challenged, but I'm so committed to peace. Rick, you know me, man, two things: no suffering so I can have peace. Anybody who knows me, that's what I'm committed to. And so after my health needs are taken care of, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, and I'm physically fit, I'm mentally alert, cognitively, I'm on point. After those things are there, man, it's all about being mindful. And even with that, I had a situation that occurred a few weeks ago. And my ego, I thought there was one way we could do it. And I was like, hey, let's do this. And the other person was pushing back. And we kind of had this passionate conversation. And I remember feeling myself being pulled along, and I was attached to it going a certain way. And I had to, like, I'm telling myself, like literally, there's this voice in my head, and there's this voice that's there, that's looking at me, coming out of myself, like becoming reactive, and it was saying, "That's not your fight. Stay on the path. Stay on the path. Stay on the path. Get back on the path." But every time they would say something, I want to object, and he would, and that's this other part of me, my conscious self would take my hand and put it down, and be like, "Not your fight. Back on the path. Back on the path." And so I was able to end the conversation back on the path. Like, here's what I want to say: I love you. I care about you. This conversation was heated. Thank you for staying on the court with me to where we can end this in a very positive way.
Right.
But I could still tell that there was some tension in between us, but I made sure that every one of my communications back to the person was filled with loving and kindness. And that was my way of reminding myself to stay on the path, stay on the path. And so, with as much practice that I do, I've accepted that this is a lifelong journey and that I'm not going to be perfect, but I really enjoy feeling peaceful. And so it's worth it. And with practice, it becomes just so much easier. The things that would trip me up before, man, I don't even see those anymore. Somebody will say something like, "Did you hear that was kind of racist?" I'm like, "I missed it. Like, I didn't even hear it." Like, because before, I was like, anything that was said, man, I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, where's the diversity representation in this photo? Like, I was like picking out everything. Like, oh my God, really? Like, man, I just see people. I see kindness. I see, okay, there's a million infinite possibilities how this could have been done. They chose this one. Cool. I'm just really not about picking fights, man. I'm really about cultivating peace.
It's like Leonard Cohen said, when you get to be fairly good at the practice, you know how to look between the garbage and the flowers. You know what to look for. And that's pretty
Yes.
much, it's all garbage and flowers, and it comes in equal doses, usually alternatively, not at the same time. But we're always thinking that when we have garbage, it's a mistake. And it's not. You have to be peaceful through the garbage. And the way I look at it is, okay, it's always this rotating, oscillating bell curve line. And sometimes there's more garbage than there is flowers. And so if you're in garbage, one way to look at it is, well, it's going to change. So I have flowers to look forward to. And if
Right.
you're in flowers, then the attitude ought to be, well, I'm really enjoying flowers, because if I don't, it's going to go away and I will miss the experience of having had the pleasure. So, either way, the point of, I think what you were making that I was taking from it was the idea that you have a practice that covers whatever shows up. And
Exactly.
that allows you to have the inner peace without suffering, without being attached to being right. Being right is a huge trap.
Oh,
Being right is a huge trap. It's just like being defensive. Someone says, "Oh, well, I see you got a new pair of pants, in the lockdown." Huh. And then you start saying, "Well, there really one in the attic, and I didn't actually go, and I bought them online." And you have all these things that you're trying to defend against.
yeah.
The thing is, what are you defending?
There's nothing to
What's the
defend.
point? You're just
There's,
going through this silliness, and you're creating all of this upset for yourself, instead of just saying, "Yeah, they got the new pants. In fact, they cost me $70,000, and I'm kind of sad about paying for it, but that's how it is." Once you get used to truth and transparency and not defending, I think you're a lot more content. Sean Connery said, and I've probably said this in another podcast, but I love this quote, and he said, "Always tell the truth, because then it's the other guy's problem."
yeah.
And when you tell the truth, you feel pretty light, right? You're a little
Yeah.
worried that somebody's going to say, "Well, I didn't know that you like to eat pig's feet with a gallon of beer every night." And you're a little worried when they hear that they're going to judge you. But on the other hand, who cares? What is there to worry about? If
Exactly.
you're okay with it.
Yeah. I've really, embraced that too, of, man, just being peaceful, man. And if someone feels like I shared too much or didn't share enough, it's like you said, that's on them. I'm peaceful over here. I'm doing the best that I can. Hopefully they can too. And I think that when I'm committed to that work, and I accept that whatever shows up is just what showed up, and each one of them being an opportunity. Like it's an opportunity to go deeper into my practice. That's one of the things that the last show we talked about was what are some of the opportunities offered by the pandemic. And I mentioned that it's an opportunity to go deeper into my practice. I mean, like every time something that comes up that I respond with intelligent action, with acceptance first and being, when that happens, man, my practice becomes more and more bulletproof. So yeah, whatever life shows up, that's what showed up. I mean, I'm not out there daring life to give me a bad hand, but I'm just saying whatever hand life does, deal, I will accept it and I will go from there. And I think when I take on that mindset, it is, I experience joy, I experience peace. It creates these other possibilities for me. Whereas if I resist it, then there's only one possibility. That's suffering. I mean, there is no other experience that is going to come my way. And I think about the people, Rick, you've been in the courtroom and stuff like that. When you're there and you're at peace, man, don't you just kind of flow with everything? Or when you're with co-counsel or opposing counsel, and you look at, the attorney get up there and she is just in flow state. She's just so peaceful. I mean, it's just beautiful to watch, man. Who doesn't want to be around that? When I play sports, and the person who gets in the huddle be like, okay, guys, we got this. We down 2 touchdowns. We got a certain time. Man, just do your job. We got this. It's cool. No matter what happens, it's all right. And just thinking that with people that were that way, you look at them like, man, they're not serious enough. I equated being serious, being uptight, with caring more. No,
Yeah.
those we've been taught that those kind of emotions are what makes winners. I got to be honest with you. When I was that way, I may have won in the moment, but long term, dude, I suffered because when I care that much about it, that I'm so attached that I'll be crushed if I don't get the outcome that I want. That creates suffering for me and for others. I judge my performance, I judge theirs, I make excuses, there's justifications. But when I'm just in it for the play, I'm not going off on anybody. I'm not pointing the fingers toward anybody. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a really that's a very difficult concept, but you've mastered it, and it's easy to talk about it, but it's very hard to put into practice because we're always trying to protect, always trying to protect. When you can get to the point where you have nothing invested in it and you just show up and you play, that's where you want to be. That unconsciousness that's really super consciousness.
Right.
So when we're talking about mindfulness, so the folks don't forget what we're talking about presence. We're talking about being completely in the moment with nothing added. You're not focused on the past. We're not multitasking. You're not focused on the future. You're in the moment. And here's the second component. You're there without judging. So whatever the stimuli is that comes to you, you're in the moment. Okay, here's the issue. You're not judging. And then your brain can start clicking into things that are logically possible instead of being frenetic. And every time you have a frenetic thought that comes in and starts going down that road of tragedy because we have the negative bias, what about this? What about this? But you're thinking of that. That'll only work this way. That'll never work. We couldn't do that before. That's what's going to happen. It
Yeah.
still happens with me every day. But the answer is always next, next. That's not a thought
Right.
that's helpful.
Yeah. And
Next.
then what?
Get
Then
out of
what?
here. Yeah, I don't need you to do the analysis right now. I'm focusing only on trying to get an attitude down that's without judgment so I can hold space and open for the solution, which is the helpful thing. One other thing I was thinking of, Keith, as you were speaking, and that is that I'm so proud of you when you started ToBeRe as a Marine. I benefited from that. Believe me, I needed the discipline again, having let myself go. But that path from being a Marine, where it's nothing but striving, nothing but hardcore judging, to where you are now is an incredible change. Which is more powerful?
Oh, this one, it's definitely more peaceful. Like I sleep like a baby now. Before I was pretty neurotic about how perfect things had to be the next day, how perfect I had to be the next day, expecting the same of others. But no, man, I've prospered more in every imaginable way. And the most important one being just inner peace. And I've had some great people around me like you that showed me a different way to approach it. But at the time, I wasn't conscious, so I wasn't receptive of the teacher that was in front of me. But that's changed. You know, as you were talking, I kind of thought about, you know, what are some things that have gotten in the way of my inner peace in the past. And you know what it was for me more than anything? I think it's right up there with striving and achievement. It was the need for certainty and not really being told that you can't control everything. What should have been told to me is you control very little. Like outside of your little being, Keith, and much of that you don't control anything. So just go ahead and really make peace with that. But that wasn't, I was taught to believe that, hey, you want it, you can achieve it, you can do this, and so which is fine, but it needs to be really tempered with what the truth is there's so much that I don't have control over. So I think a lot of people are struggling with the lack of certainty right now. And they're going to continue to suffer because they need that, and I don't need it. So I look at like a couple examples would be, first of all, in my relationship. Let's say I was in a really great relationship. I mean, like lights out. We had a great time together. We connected, love making, next level, all of that. I mean, we'd be in the middle of some kind of like amazing experience, and there would be a part of me that was attached. And I'm not, when it comes to other people, I've never been one to be super attached. But every once in a while, there'll be this one relationship to where, I mean, like she was like a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10, to where I just found myself attached, right? And so in this attachment space, there were certain things that I would want to know. And the way that it often showed up was, so we're in this moment, right? And I'm like, so we're getting together next weekend too, right? Like we're getting together, right? Like before I could fully go back to enjoying the moment that we were in, I had to make sure that there would be another moment after this one. And so one person just gave me a really great lesson that says, just be here with this one. And my ego was like, oh, so that must mean that, you're not down. Like, we're not really like in this together. We're not soulmates. Like, because if you can't give me that commitment or that verbal contract, then you're not really like, and it was a struggle for me, man. But thankfully I embraced, I was like, nah, I'm just cool with this. Maybe we get together next weekend. Maybe we don't. So that was huge for me, was not needing to have a certainty in a relationship. That was great. And it really made me, and you helped me with this, with friendships, with, hey, Keith, man, you never know what people are going through, or maybe they're not going through anything, but it's cool. If they're your friend today and they're not next year, it's all right. Create the space for them to come and go. So you helped me with friendships. The relationship one, the practice helped me with that. And then the last one, right now from the healthcare organization that I am volunteering with, I work there too. And so I'm on furlough indefinitely. And, if when I got the opportunity to come on board there 3.5 years ago, if you would have told me 3.5 years ago that they would have said, hey, Keith, we're going to bring you on board, probably will only be for 3.5 years. You can take it or leave it. What, dude, 3 years? Count me in. I'm in for 3 years. So now, I'm on the other side of that. And, the 3.5 years, and the whole way, Rick, if I said this, it's like, Rick, I don't know what's going to happen with this healthcare organization, man. But if they call me tomorrow and say, Keith, we appreciate your service, we got to let you go. I'm like, dude, it's been a great run. And so when this did happen, that was my attitude. It's been a great run. So I live my life like none of that is promised beyond this moment right here. And so that dimension has opened up a space for me to be more peaceful than I've ever been in my life without needing the certainty of things. I don't need you to promise me things. We're human beings, man. We're limited. We can't promise anything. we can only we can't promise outside of our current state of consciousness. And so I'm trying to honor any promises that I make. And as a result of that, the practice helps me do that. But I think those things, the striving and the need of certainty about people and situations that I found myself attached to, were really letting that go has been key to me being peaceful, having internal peace, and being able to share it with others.
Amen, brother. That was terrific. Yeah, exactly right.
Thank you.
I can't enhance on that.
Oh,
There,
before we close, can
yeah.
you give an example of one or two things that were in the way of your inner peace? There may be people in the audience who may be able to relate.
Oh, sure. When I was with a big firm, I I graduated from law school probably the middle of my class, and I wasn't on law review. That's not usually the type of person that is allowed to work at a big firm. I got to the big firm after a couple of years in practice, and I had had some successes, so they were looking for somebody with experience, and they hired me. But I didn't fit in. I wasn't as intelligent, didn't feel I was anyway. The law practice didn't come natural to me. I didn't live, breathe, and eat the law. I had other interests. And I just was not a good fit, but I didn't realize that then. I figured if I just worked really hard and tried really hard and brought the boss extra coffee, I mean, so there'd be some angle that would make up for my deficits. And so I just kept trying and trying and trying, and I worked harder, and I'd stay late at night, and I would make sure that people knew that I was doing those things, so I looked good, right? So
Right.
trying to look good, trying to kiss up, trying to do extra work that was really outside of what I was asked to do, and unappreciated. Those were things that took a lot of toll on me. And if I just realized, look, I have these assets and this ability, and if that's not enough, then we should just call it a day, which eventually happened. They fired me. but
So despite
yeah,
your efforts to look good and needing credit, they still
that's
came
right.
to the same outcome.
That's
Yeah.
so true, Keith. My thing was, your thing was looking for security. My thing was looking good. And so, but the truth always wins. The truth always wins. So it just took me 3 years before I got canned. I could have gotten
Right.
canned like the first 3 months, and it could have been my choice, because all I needed to do was to realize I was just doing something that was outside of who I was,
Yes.
for only the reason of wanting to look good and to get strokes. If I would have just tried hard, done my best, worked hard, and then detached from the outcome, because that's all you can do. I had control,
Yes.
as you say, over a very limited person, me, a very limited amount I could do. I couldn't become all of the things that those folks normally have in terms of credentials. I didn't have them. So I couldn't be that. And if I just had accepted that, things would have been much, much better for me, I think. In the long run, it was a great deal of suffering for 3 years. I
Right.
couldn't sleep. It was hurtful. I was the last guy always picked on a team, not a sports team, but like a trial team. I was the last guy who was talked to. People didn't make eye contact with me, and that doubled down my effort.
Right. Right. Right.
Instead of
Yeah.
saying, "Oh,
I
Rick,
must not be working hard enough. I must
yeah,
not be
yeah,
trying hard enough.
yeah, I didn't bring enough coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, come over to my house. I'll cook for you. Will that make you like me? That kind of thing. So, it goes back to that stuff about control, being in the moment, right? This is your moment. Take a breath. How is it for you? Well, I'm fine. I'm healthy. I have a great attitude. I have certain abilities. This is really a wonderful thing. And here are the issues that I'm working on. That's a wonderful thing. Being within yourself is a wonderful thing. So being aware of the present moment and not obsessing about the future or the past, coupled with the idea of being mindful, that is not judging, being conscious in that moment,
Yeah.
is the key. And that'll bring you a lot of peace. And it's lastly the old thing Reinhold Niebuhr used to say, that, and this is a plaque probably in most everybody's house, something along the lines of, please let me change the things that I can, accept the things that I can't, accept the things, not fight, not argue, not bitch, accept
Yes.
the things that I can't change, and be wise enough to know the difference.
Right. I think that's spot on, Rick. Um, and again, there's so little that we can change. I know there's one person in particular who listens to our show who has a challenging legal matter coming up. And I think that, well, just in our conversations, one thing she struggles with is some guilt and some regret about, how she's handled things in the past, and, starting, stopping, of, making healthy, smart choices, or I wouldn't say smart, but healthy choices that are consistent with what she wants for her life and that of her family. That you know she's doing the practice now, and she's experiencing some inner peace, and she understands the importance of continue to do it. But I think regret is something that a lot of and regret and guilt is something that a lot that really costs people inner peace. So what would you say to her, Rick?
Well, this is another one that's you have to really feel, and you have to believe it, and you have to be willing to give yourself permission to let it go. So that would be guilt, regret, worry. They're all useless. They're absolutely useless, and
Right.
they only do one thing, and that's waste your present moments. If
Mm,
you've got to get past that, no matter what you did, you learn from it and move on, and accept it and be transparent about it and move on. That's past. You can't go back and change it. Obviously, we all know that, but we continue to beat ourselves up about it. We continue to find ways we could have done it better. Or how about the classic? We get into an argument with somebody and you feel you were put down, and you spend the rest of the night thinking, if only I had said,
right.
you could have been right in the argument. Okay. My point is that if they're useless emotions and all you have is the present moment, then you're wasting your present moments. You're just throwing them away on nothing. Focus on what you can do. And if you can't do it, let it go. Let it go. Detach. There's no value that can come from writing yourself down. None. None.
No.
None.
Rick, well said, man. I think we covered the inner peace thing, as best we could. So thank you, Rick, for another great show. I love you. Thank you for being in my life. And, you are an individual, that has contributed to raising my average in terms of being present, being peaceful, being kind, self-care. You're super important to my self-care. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Keith. And I'm humbled to think that I have anything to do with your excellent example of how to be a human being. Thank you, buddy.
But I love you.
I love you.